Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Thursday morning. I hope you all are doing well. We're going to talk about some of the names that have been floating around over the last 24, 48 hours or so to potentially come in and fill the vacant Everton manager's role, of course, after Carlo Ancelotti has left to join Real Madrid. There's been a number of managers that have been thrown in the hat. Some we'll be very, very familiar with. Some will be too familiar with for a lot of Evertonians' likings, and some that maybe are a little bit more exciting, and some that are just completely and utterly blah, aren't they really? That's how I could describe them, absolutely blah. We're going to go through as many of them as we possibly can today, bearing in mind that Everton have been linked with pretty much every single manager that currently isn't in a job over the last 24, 48 hours. Some of them are quite strong links, and links that are coming from quite reliable sources that may have some substance to them, and some of them are just what we would assume would be complete and utter nonsense and are never ever going to happen. But listen, this was always going to happen as soon as, you know, we heard the news on, what was it, Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon that Carlo Ancelotti had, Tuesday afternoon it was, that Carlo Ancelotti had left the football club. We knew that we were going to get inundated with managers and links with managers, and apparently we're in talks with this manager and that manager, so it is important to sit down and try and find our way through them all and try and determine which ones are have got some substance to them and which ones are just complete and utter absolute nonsense. But also, you know, which managers we would like to see come into Everton Football Club and which managers we think will come into Everton Football Club and do a decent job, because it's all well and good us sitting here saying, yeah, you know, we don't want, there's absolutely no substance to, I don't know, let's say Ralph Rangnick for example, but he'd be a great manager to come in to the football club and improve us. Or we could sit here and say, there's every substance to Eddie Howe, and that might be a real possibility for the football club because of links with Eddie Howe previously, and you know, the fact that it just seems like a proper Everton thing to do, doesn't it, to go and appoint Eddie Howe after him being out of a job for 2 years and his last job being relegated with Bournemouth. But let's be honest, I don't know if I'm alone here or if I'm one of the only Evertonians, but I really don't want Eddie Howe managing Everton Football Club. I just don't think he's good enough or ready for the job, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. And as always with situations like this, throughout the course of this live stream, there'll probably be different various bits of information. So you'll probably have people in the live comments saying, oh Cam, this has just come out, that's just come out, that, you know, this is happening, that's happening, because, you know, that's what we get with these types of situations, don't we? We're constantly getting updates, we're constantly getting things changing. For example, literally within the last couple of minutes or so, from Nico Schera, who is a independent journalist, I believe, and ultimately has rumoured Everton with a lot of players and a lot of, bringing in a lot of players in the past, certainly under Carlo Ancelotti's reign. He has said that talks are in progress between Everton and Nuno Espírito Santo. It is rumoured to be a 3-year contract, so that's interesting. Again, not the most reliable source on the planet, but Nuno Espírito Santo is certainly a name that seems to be quite high up in Everton's list for potential Carlo Ancelotti replacements, and he seems to be a name that Everton are really, really considering, according to a lot of reliable journalists. And then Calcio Mercato, literally again just 5 minutes ago, saying that Maurizio Sarri, of course ex-Chelsea manager, is in contention for a Premier League return with Everton, also ex-Juventus manager as well. And you know, Maurizio Sarri, again, experienced, obviously managed Chelsea and won a title with Chelsea, I believe, managed Juventus as well and won a title with Juventus, so an experienced manager, somebody of a similar ilk to Carlo Ancelotti, of course, in terms of, you know, that experience of winning trophies and taking teams to, league titles, but also in the same vein as Carlo Ancelotti has never really took over a team, certainly not to my knowledge, that are in as dire a situation as Everton are. But look, before we get into any of the other names, there's loads of names we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Nuno Espírito Santo, we're going to talk about David Moyes, we're going to talk about Eddie Howe, Duncan Ferguson, Marco Silva, believe it or not, we'll have a little bit of a laugh about him for a couple of minutes. Frank Lampard's been thrown in there, obviously Ralph Rangnick, like we said before, Eddie Howe. We're going to talk about all of these different names very, very shortly. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments, by the way, really do appreciate it. We'll get involved with as many of them comments as we can today. Massive thanks to everybody for the support on the channel recently as well. It means an absolute massive amount to me. If you're enjoying and you could leave a like, that would be fantastic. If you could share the stream as well, that would be absolutely fantastic as well. But anyway, let's get into the first bit of information that I want to talk about before we go into talking about any of the managerial candidates that have been linked with Everton over the last 24, 48 hours or So, and this information I think is key. And I think this information is very important as well. And it's coming from the Liverpool Echo. And I think the Daily Mail actually reported it yesterday as well. But this is coming from the Liverpool Echo this morning. And it has said that Everton have received more than 40 applicants for the vacant manager's role within 24 hours of Ancelotti leaving the club. Marcel Brands was going through all of the names yesterday. They also said it is believed that talks have already begun with former Wolves manager Nuno, Espírito, Santo. However, Everton are not close to making an appointment. They also said Everton are expected to hold conversations with other candidates on the shortlist. And like I said, that all falls in conjunction with a report from the Daily Mail last night, which said Marcel Brands, Everton's sporting director of football, whatever you want to say, has been inundated with inquiries about the vacancy since Carlo Ancelotti has left, but he is determined to be thorough in looking at applicants, and for that reason it is not likely that an appointment is imminent. Now, this is a massive amount of information, and a really important piece of information as well, because what that tells us is that the club are finally allowing Marcel Brands to do his job. How long has it taken for this club to allow the director of football to start directing football? I sat here a couple of days ago when I wasn't 100% sort of all in for Marcel Brands having full responsibility in picking the manager and you know, having a final say in who comes in. But the more and more I've thought about it, and the more it sort of dawned on me that Carlo Ancelotti's left the football club, and we need to go out and we need to bring somebody in that is ultimately going to stabilise the club and take us forward, the more I've thought, well, this is exactly what Marcel Brands is in here to do. If Marcel Brands hasn't got a say in the managers that come in, and then ultimately when the manager comes in, he wants his certain amount of players, and then Marcel Brands hasn't really got a say in that because he's got to bring in the players that the manager wants, then what's the point in Marcel Brands? Ultimately, he just becomes an advisor at the football club. He's not a director of football, he's a football advisor to everybody else. And basically what that is somebody that can tell people what he thinks they should do, but if they don't do it, then they don't do it. That's not what a director of football is. A director of football is somebody that directs the football, that makes the footballing decisions. And that's why Marcel Brands was brought in by Farhad Moshiri and by the Everton board, is because as much as Farhad Moshiri's done brilliant for Everton this, you know, so far since he's come in, and he's invested an awful lot of money, and he's backed us certainly financially, and obviously the new stadium's on the horizon, and that's all well and good. Farhad Moshiri shouldn't be making footballing decisions because he's not a footballer, man. He's a businessman, and he's very good at doing that, and he's very dedicated to Everton Football Club, and I respect him a lot for that, but he's not a footballing man. Farhad Moshiri isn't going to know who the best name is to come in and improve Everton. He might know who the biggest name is and who's going to bring the most traction, i.e. a Carlo Ancelotti, but he's not going to know who the best name is. You know, the managers that we could bring in that are going to be here for the long run and that have got the philosophies and the theories and the tactics to come in and ultimately massively improve Everton. Farhad Moshiri isn't going to know that because he doesn't need to know that, because he's not a footballer, man. He's there for the business element of things. He's there to invest the money and to ultimately oversee everything that's going on. He's brought in Marcel Brands to be the director of football. Ultimately, he's brought in Marcel Brands to run Everton Football Club. Certainly, what happens on the pitch and what happens with the first team squad and what's going on in the football element. The business element, yeah, Denise Barrett-Baxendale, great. Farhad Moshiri, great. Bill Kenwright, great. But everything to do with football at Everton Football Club should be ran by Marcel Brands. He's been given a 3-year contract extension. He's already been here for 3 years. I'm not close to the club. I don't know anything that anybody else knows, but I would put a large amount of money that there's been decisions made in the last 3 years since Marcel Brands has been at Everton that have gone against what Marcel Brands actually wants. Now, whether that's signings, whether that's managerial appointments, whether that's whether that's just footballing decisions in general, I would bet a lot of money that there's decisions that have gone on in the last 3 years that have gone against what Marcel Brands has truly wanted in his own heart and truly believed what's best for the football club. So let's stop the messing about and let's stop the whole, with Everton, so we'll just give 15 million to, I don't know, Rafa Benitez because he's Rafa Benitez, or let's give 15 million to somebody else because they're a big name in the world of football. No, allow Marcel Brands to go out and pick the right man for the job. He is the director of football and he should be directing the football. He should be making the footballing decisions. And I get that Marcel Brands isn't everybody's cup of tea. I get that. talking about cup of teas. I've got a cup of tea. I hope you've all got a cup of tea. I hope you're all well this morning, by the way. Where's me manners? I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all, are good and healthy and happy and getting involved in the stream. Big thanks to everybody that is. There we go. We're back. The stream decided to do what it usually does and kick us out for no apparent reason. It's me computer. My computer's absolutely dreadful. I will be getting a new computer. Lost a few viewers there. I do apologise if you were watching live and ultimately it ended up kicking you out. I do apologise. If we could share the stream and try and get as many people back in as we possibly can, that would mean a great deal to me. If you're watching and you're enjoying, please do hit that like button as well. Only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Loads of support recently. Really do appreciate it. But yeah, like I said, Mark, this was the perfect opportunity for Everton Football Club this summer. 3 years into Marcel Brands' contract, obviously his contract was ending this summer, to say to Marcel Brands, right, we don't believe you've done a good enough job. We don't want to put all of the responsibility onto you. So thanks for your time, but we're going to relieve you of your duties, or certainly relieve you of your duties as a director of football. You might stay on the board and be involved in some footballing decisions, but as a director of football, we're going to relieve you from your duties. And everybody would have gone, well, that's a decision the club has made, and the club clearly don't believe that Marcel Brands is the right man to take us forward and the right man to make those decisions. But the club haven't done that. The club have given Marcel Brands an extra 3-year contract. The club have effectively said to Marcel Brands, we trust you with every footballing decision that you make. We trust you to bring in the type of players that we need to improve this squad. We trust you to have a big say in whoever comes in to manage the football club. Now, obviously, when he was given the contract, I don't think anybody at the football club could have known that Carlo Ancelotti was going to turn around and put the two fingers up and get off. And that's fair enough, and I understand that. And, again, maybe the club would have made a different decision on Marcel Brands' contract had they have known Carlo Ancelotti would have left the football club. I don't think they would have, but maybe they would have. But ultimately, Marcel Brands has been given that responsibility to run this football club and to make footballing decisions, and it is absolutely imperative. I can't stress to you how important it is that Marcel Brands is going through those applications, and Marcel Brands is being that man to go, right, yeah, he could come in and do a good enough job. No, he's not going to come in and do a good enough job. No, he can do it, but I'm going to work with him. Because ultimately what we have to look at as well is Everton haven't got much of a structure in place. We haven't got much of a... There's not much going on at Everton, really. It's all a big, massive mess, isn't it? It's all an absolute shitstorm, as I've said a number of times before over the years on a number of different occasions. But Marcel Brands ultimately has to be involved in this managerial appointment, because he needs to determine which managers he is going to be able to work with. Let's take David Moyes for an example, and I know there'll be people in the live comments that don't want David Moyes, and there'll probably be people in the live comments that do want David Moyes, and we will talk a little bit more about David Moyes a little bit later on when we start talking about individual managerial managers that have been linked with the job. Sorry, if you are enjoying, by the way, hit the like button, subscribe, don't forget to share the stream. But let's take David Moyes, for example. David Moyes is a manager who likes a lot of responsibility. David Moyes was massively successful at Everton in his 10, 11, 12 years at Everton Football Club, because what he did was he was allowed to come in, he worked directly with Bill Kenwright, and that was it. Everton Football Club, at the time of David Moyes being here, was David Moyes, Bill Kenwright, and the players on the pitch, and David Moyes' backroom staff. Everybody else wasn't interested in football. They were interested in making a little bit of money, being entertained. They weren't interested in football whatsoever. They were just interested in their own personal gain or whatever. It was David Moyes and Bill Kenwright that made every single footballing decision. Stewie says, alright Cam, just shared on Twitter. Cheers, Stewie, really appreciate that. And the players on the pitch. Now, David Moyes loves that. David Moyes loves going into football clubs and having football clubs, whether it be Everton, whether it be West Ham, whether it be Sunderland, whatever, and having football clubs saying, yeah, you've got full reign of everything you want to do, the style of football you want to play, the players you want to bring in, the system you want to work with, the way in which you want the club to go. You've got full reign of that. You do what you want to do. And we've seen this in David Moyes' 2 stints at West Ham. His first stint, he was brought in and he was told, these are the type of players you're going to be working with. This is the type of system we want you to play. This is where we want you to be. This is what, this is where you want you to finish. This is where we want you to finish in the next sort of couple of years. And it didn't work. It didn't work because he wasn't given full control. He was practically told, you've got to work with the rest of us here to make this happen. And David Moyes, personally, for me, I don't think David Moyes likes or suits that. I think David Moyes likes going into a football club and basically being told, you've got full reign here. And that's what's happened with the second stint at West Ham. He's gone in and the owners and the board have gone, bring in whoever you want, do whatever you want to do on the pitch, just get us results. And they're sat in the background going, yeah, brilliant this, we're winning games of football, we could get into Europe, this is absolutely boss. And look where it's gotten them. They're going to finish, they've either finished in a European position, they'll be playing Europa League football next season. Absolutely brilliant for West Ham. David Moyes, I don't think works under this current Everton regime or, current Everton system that we've got going at the football club with Marcel Brands as the director of football. I just don't think he works whatsoever. If you were going to bring a David Moyes in, you would have had to have got rid of Marcel Brands and said to David Moyes, you're going to come in and you've got full reign on who we sign, how we play, what we do on the pitch, what we do off the pitch. You're basically running the club from top to bottom, because that's what David Moyes likes to do. And to be fair to David Moyes, when he's allowed to do that, typically he does it very, very well, as shown at West Ham, as shown at Everton for the decade that he was at Everton. He stabilised us and he done brilliantly because he was in control of everything, signings, what went on the pitch, what went on off the pitch. He was Mr. Everton at that point. He wouldn't be Mr. Everton now. He'd be coming in to manage a team, and if it was a team of players that aren't specifically his team of players, then I don't know how he would cope. And this is where I think Everton need to really, really sort of have a think and have a look at themselves in the next couple of weeks or so. There's no reason, by the way, and this is a little bit off topic, but it's sort of on the same sort of lines. There's no reason as to why Everton can't go out and sign 2 or 3 players now without having a manager. And you might say, well, why can't? Because what happens if the manager comes in and he doesn't like those players? Then you don't bring that manager in. Marcel Brands, as I've just said before, is here to be the director of football. He is here to direct football, to make every footballing decision. This could be a real blessing for Everton, this, in terms of allowing Marcel Brands to just bring in who he wants to bring in. Not having any input from a manager like Carlo Ancelotti, who's got his old boys who he wants to bring in because he trusts them and he thinks they can do a good job. Not having any input at the moment from any other manager. The board should be saying to Marcel Brands, right, okay, for as much as you're, as much as you're responsible for picking the manager and having a big part in playing in who comes in to manage the football club, you still should be looking at going out and bringing in the players you want to bring in. Because let's be honest, Ben Godfrey isn't here because of Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti openly come out in the first couple of months of the season and said, I didn't know anything about Ben Godfrey. I'd never seen him play football before. Ben Godfrey has been our signing of the season. England debut as well last night, by the way, so congratulations to Ben. Absolutely brilliant for him. That fantastic to see. And obviously he's a top player and he deserves it more than anything. Deserves it more than anyone. Ben Godfrey isn't here because of Carlo Ancelotti. Ben Godfrey is here because of Marcel Brands. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and slag off Alan or James or anything like that, because they've come in and they've done a decent job as well. But my point is that Ben Godfrey could have been signed with no manager at the football club because he come from Marcel Brands. Jared Branthwaite could have been signed with no manager at the football club because he come from Marcel Brands. Go and allow Marcel Brands now. What would be a massive statement for Everton is, whilst we're sitting down and looking through all of the managerial list and making a decision, if we go out and we sign a right back and we sign a right winger and we sign a left winger, and then everyone goes, hang on, how are you signing players? You haven't got a manager. And we all go, yeah, we've got a director of football. He directs football. He makes the decisions. He brings in the players. He wanted these players, so he's coming in. He's bringing those players in. And whoever comes in to manage those players is there to manage the group of players that Everton have brought in to suit the way in which Everton want to play and the way in which Marcel Brands' vision is. Not bringing in a manager. And I'm not saying that a manager can't come in and bring in his own players, by the way. I'm not saying that a manager can't come in and say, right, I think I can add 1 or 2 players on top of this squad that I know that I think will massively improve the squad. That's all well and good. That's fine. That's brilliant. Absolutely made up. Do that, boss. But not a manager that's going to come in and go, right, I need this 6 or 7 players, and then leave in 18 months, the manager leave in 18 months, and then we're stuck with another 6 or 7 players from a managerial regime that hasn't been successful, and then we're bringing a new manager in who goes, no, I want these 6 or 7 players, and then we're trying to get rid of the other 6 or 7 that have come in from the previous manager. What's the point in doing that? When if Marcel Brands is being given the trust and the faith from the football club to be here for the long term, he's been here for 3 years and he's going to be in here for another 3 years, let Marcel Brands go and make every signing, and then at least there's a bit of continuity. at least you know there's a bit of consistency. At least you know that if you bring in Eddie Howe in the next couple of weeks and he doesn't work with the players that Marcel Brands has brought in, you take Eddie Howe out and you put another manager in there and he might work, and if he does, brilliant. If he doesn't work with the players Marcel Brands has brought in, you take him out and you bring in somebody else, and sooner rather than later, you're going to find a manager that works with those players. And if those players are shite and they're not good enough and it's clear that it's the players that are the issue, then you go to Marcel Brands and go, well, hang on, you brought in these players with no manager at Everton Football Club. You brought in these players completely off your own back, off your own list, so you're directly responsible. Because all we're getting at the moment is all we're getting at the moment is, well, is so-and-so a Marcel Brands signing, is so-and-so an Ancelotti signing, is so-and-so a Marco Silva signing. Who I'm going to be honest with you now, and again, this might just be the emotion and the or the mad wild brain of mine that's just ticking and ticking and ticking over the last 24, 48 hours or so. But Marcel Brands, who is the signing that Marcel Brands has received the most stick about in his time at Everton Football Club? In the 3 years since he's been at Everton Football Club, who is the signing that Marcel Brands has received the most stick about? Let's be honest, it's Alex Iwobi. Now, I'm not saying that Alex Iwobi wasn't a name on Marcel Brands' list. I'm not saying that Alex Iwobi isn't a Marcel Brands signing. But what I don't believe is that Marcel Brands himself desperately wanted to go out and spend £30 million on Alex Iwobi. Because when has Marcel Brands spent £30 million on any player? He didn't want to spend £30 million on Alan, so he got that deal down to 20. Didn't want to spend £30 million on Decore, so he got that deal down to 20. He brought in one of the best young centre-backs in the league in European football for £20 million. He got James Rodriguez for less than any. He got him for less than a penny. He got him for nothing. So we can all sit here and say, oh my God, Marcel Brands has made an awful decision there. He's brought in Alex Iwobi, and Alex Iwobi cost us £30 million. But what if Marcel Brands had somebody in his ear, one of the board members, I don't know whether it was Managerial or somebody else, saying, well, we're not getting Zaha this summer because he's going to cost us 90 million, so we need you to go out and bring somebody in. And he's gone, well, I've got this player in Alex Iwobi, but it's probably going to take us more than 2 hours to negotiate the fee because he's probably worth around 10 or 15 million. We could probably get him for that, but Arsenal are going to want it. And what happens if Farhad Managerial's gone, bang, there's 30 million, go and sign him? Is that then a Marcel Brands signing? Or is that a player Marcel Brands has identified for a price that might have been actually worth it for Alex Iwobi, and somebody at the higher up have gone, shit, we need to bring in a player because we're not bringing in Wilfred Zaha, go and throw loads of money at Alex Iwobi? Now, of course, that's a hypothetical situation. That mightn't be the case whatsoever. Marcel Brands might have just said, you know what, Alex Iwobi's worth 30 million, and then he's made that transfer happen, and therefore Marcel Brands is at fault for that transfer because he's not worth £30 million. He really, really isn't. But it's all hypothetical situations, isn't it? Again, I'm not completely convinced that Marcel Brands in himself wanted to buy Alex Iwobi for 30-40 million pounds. I'm really not convinced, because since he's been at Everton Football Club, Marcel Brands, 3 years. Now we brought in Richarlison for 50. Have we brought in anybody else for over 30 million pounds since Richarlison? And who was a Marco Silva signing, by the way? No. Dean cost, what, 12 million pounds, something like that. Stevie said 200 people watching it. They're like, if you could hit that like button, it would mean a great deal to me. Honestly, it would mean a massive amount to me. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share the stream as well on social media. Get as many people involved as we possibly can. We will get in the comments shortly, by the way. But Marcel Brands going out and spending 30 million pounds on Alex Iwobi is sort of the complete opposite to a Marcel Brands type of signing, isn't it, really? It just doesn't really make much sense whatsoever. And that's why I sort of think, well, was Marcel Brands maybe put under pressure to bring somebody in the last couple of hours of the transfer window? Was he put under pressure to just buy Alex Iwobi for that much money? Because the board of directors wanted us to have another player, wanted us to have a deadline day signing. You know how Everton like a deadline day signing, and usually they're all shite. So again, for me, I'm fully in the camp of allowing Marcel Brands. Oh, Moyes Keane, there you go, Moyes Keane, fair enough. 20 odd. Okay, Moyes Keane come in, 28 million pounds. And I think that was probably a Marcel Brand signing, to be fair. He brought him in. I think he thought he'd do a lot better than what he has done at Everton, specifically. But Moyes Keane's a success. Whether we like it or not, Moyes Keane's a success, because Moyes Keane is going to be sold for more than £30 million. Whether PSG are trying to negotiate getting the fee down or want to take him on loan, if Moyes Keane leaves Everton this summer, he's going for more than £35 million. Absolute. So Moyes Keane then is a profit. Yet he hasn't worked in terms of a player and what we all believed he could or might have been when he come in at Everton, but he's still worked in terms of financially. We've brought in a player for £28 million. He's been shite for a year at us. He's then looked really poor at the start of a season. We've loaned him out. He's had a great season. We've come back and we'll make money on him. So is that a failure on Marcel Brand's terms? I don't know. I think it's a positive. And look, again, I'm a fan of Marcel Brand's. I am. Because I think I think there's been a lot of decisions made in the last 3 years since he's been at Everton that haven't necessarily come from Marcel Brands, but that seem like they've come from Marcel Brands, so we all just put the blame on him. Some people mightn't like him, some people mightn't be a fan of him, and that's absolutely fine, that's fair enough. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions, but I can't stress how important it is that Marcel Brands, like I said, is making those decisions. I can't stress how important it is that that Marcel Brands is key in that decision-making process, because let's be honest, Marcel Brands needs to be key in this decision-making process, because he is the director of football. He should be directing the football. He should be making footballing decisions. There's no if, buts or maybes. There's no, there's nothing else around. There's nothing else surrounding that Marcel Brands shouldn't be making footballing decisions. He absolutely should be. He should be the man who's determining which players come into the football club and which managers come into the football club. Before we get into talking about some of the names that have been on the list, I want to talk about Nuno, Espírito, Santo and David Moyes first, because they seem to be the front runners, and then we'll go through all of the others as well. Let's get into some of the live comments before we do that. I hope you all are doing well. If you're enjoying, please do hit that like button, of course. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Really do appreciate it. Everton FL says it's going to be Nuno. I think it'll be Nuno, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know if I particularly want Nuno. I'm gonna probably put my head on the line a little bit later on in the stream and mention a fella that I think I'm just fully at the point of just saying give it to him now, because I'm literally bored of things failing and I'm bored of players not giving it 110%, and I know this guy would demand 110% from every single player. But I think it's more likely going to be Nuno than anybody else, I think, purely because we're in advanced talks with him. He's got no club. I think Nuno would come to Everton in a heartbeat without even having to be asked twice. Joe says it'll be Nuno or Howe. I hope it's not Eddie Howe. B says it's going to be Eddie Howe. Sam says, really hoping we get Rangnick in. He has a philosophy which works and is exciting to watch. Means no more games with 11 men behind the ball. Well, he was linked yesterday, wasn't he? He was linked yesterday. Ralf Rangnick, former Leipzig manager. So, yeah, again, there's a potential there. I don't think he's as... Daniel says Cam wants Moyes. I definitely don't want Moyes. It's not David Moyes, I'll tell you that. I've just said before, David Moyes wouldn't work at the current Everton with the structure that Everton have got in place. David Moyes wouldn't work, in my opinion. But no, Ralf Rangnick, I think, is a name that's been thrown in the hat. I don't think it's realistic, to be honest, and I don't think he's in the club's top 5. But yeah, look, he has got a philosophy. He's got a very sort of structured way of dealing with things and managing players and managing clubs, and he has the way he does things, and usually it works. He's been out of a job for a couple of years, I believe, so that's maybe a risk for the football club, maybe something that the football club will have to take into consideration. Worthy, yeah, you could be in with a shout there, but we'll talk about everybody as the stream goes on. Manuel says, any update on James? Not yet, he's still in Colombia, mate. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll be in Everton playing next season, but that's purely because I just don't think he will. Not because of probably because of Ancelotti, to be fair, but not because I've heard anything. That's just my gut feeling. Teddy says, who can polish all the turd? Exactly, mate. Chad says, dunk. Well, he can scare the turd to some balls. Tom says, hi Cam, hi Tom, hope you well. Everton Blue says, hey Cam, love the vids. I want Nuno or Duncan to replace Carlo. Thanks, mate, really appreciate that. Yeah, we're going to talk about both in a second. Adam, he says, nervous but excited for the future. There you go. Chandler, what's happening, mate? He says, good morning, Cam. I didn't know who I wanted, but now I've got my heart set on Ralf Rangnick. Yeah, there was a video going round on Twitter, wasn't he? Adam, she says Rangnick will be good. There was a video going around on Twitter yesterday of Ralf Rangnick, and he'd had an interview. It was probably a couple of years ago, to be fair. I don't know when the interview was from, but he'd had an interview where he was talking about bringing an identity to a football club and bringing a philosophy to a football club, and really making sure the club and the fans know what the club's about and what it stands for. And that is just exactly what Everton need. It's exactly what Everton need. Chris says Rangnick as a coach, but as been a director of football for 3 years, would he work under a younger director of football in Marcel? It's a good point. These are all things we have to consider. What I would say is bringing in a head coach rather than a manager might be the way forward, because again, some people might just think it's a different terminology, but a head coach, I think, is a little bit more hands-on, and I think this Everton squad and these Everton players don't learn and can't learn from somebody standing in a dressing room going, right, you're going to play here today, you're going to play here, I want you to make those runs down there. I think they all just look at the board and go, okay. Whereas if you're on the training ground with them, if you're physically moving them and saying, no, you need to be there, you need to make that run there, you need to go in behind, I think that'll benefit this current Everton squad a lot more, even though we know this current Everton squad isn't good enough and needs a lot of reinforcements and a lot of people to be replaced. Owen Wilson. What's happening, Owen Wilson? I don't know if you're Owen Wilson from the films or you just named Owen Wilson. Probably just named Owen Wilson. But he says next season's El Clasico will be between two former mid-table Everton managers. Yeah, how mad is that? Three of Everton's most recent managers have failed at Everton and gone on to get better jobs. Roberto Martinez failed at Everton and went on to be the Belgian manager. Ronald Koeman failed at Everton and has gone on to be the Barcelona manager. And Carlo Ancelotti, let's be honest, arguably failed at Everton and has gone on to be the Real Madrid manager. So how does that work? If you're enjoying, by the way, please do hit that like button. Adam says, don't know why he'd leave the Red Bull group unless we pay him shed loads, to be honest. I think he's talking about Ralph Ragnick. Money talks, mate. Money talks in football, and ambition talks as well, doesn't it, as we've seen in the last 24, 48 hours or so. Carl says, hello, mate, just out from an Italian source. Sarri in contention to replace Carlo Ancelotti at Everton. Sarri gave Alan his best years. Alan brilliant under Carlo, but different under Sarri, exciting brand. Yeah. I've just seen the Sarri stuff there then. It's come from Calcio Mercato, who have already linked Everton with about 400 different players this summer, never mind managers. So I'm not completely and utterly believing in it. But look, Everton are going to get linked with every single manager under the sun over the next couple of weeks. We're going to get linked with every single manager that hasn't got a job, because that's just the way in which these things work. We get linked with everybody because it's easy journalism and it's easy clicks and it's easy for people to make money. And Stephen says, not bothered too much about the manager. I'm more bothered that none of the Deadwood has been shipped out. Don't want the new manager given another season to the Deadwood. That's my biggest worry, and that's my biggest problem. And we will get into some of the replacements in a moment, because I realise we're half an hour in and we haven't even talked about any of them, so I apologise about that. That's my biggest problem, is whoever the next manager is, I don't want them coming in and going, right, okay, I want to see Andre Gomez for a year because I want to make a decision on whether I believe he's good enough. I want to see Fabian Delph for a year because I want to make a decision as to whether I believe he's good enough. No, trust in what we're saying. A lot of these players are absolutely shite, and they're not good enough to be at Everton Football Club. You don't need to sit and watch them for a year to realise that. We'll all tell you that as fans. They're not good enough. They've failed under multiple different managers before. Don't even bother looking at them in training. Just go in and say, I haven't even met you, but you're on the list, you're going. See you later, you're not good enough. That's my biggest worry, is that whoever comes in is going to want to have a look at the squad for a year and determine who's good enough and who's not good enough. And we can't afford to do that, because it'll be another year of mediocrity. It'll be another year of a mid-table finish. Alex says, my first Mighty Blues live, how are you? Is right, Alex. Nice one, mate. I'm good, mate. I'm good. Froome Pinto says, I can. What do you make of the rumours that 40 managers apply for the job? I'm not surprised by it, to be honest. I'm not surprised. And Ryan says, stop entertaining the Ralph Ragnick view. It's pissing me off. There you go. Fair enough, mate. Anyway, let's get into some of the names. That are being rumoured to be linked with the Everton job. Now, we will be talking about these names individually. Not all of them, but a few of them individually over the next coming days and weeks or so. We're going to sit down and talk about Nuno in a stream of its own. We're going to talk about Duncan Ferguson in a stream of its own as well. But I wanted to get all of the names sort of out there and give a brief explanation as to why I think they would be a success or not. So this is the strongest rumours at the moment. are coming out of various different sources. The Daily Mail and the Echo have reported this. Various different sources are stating that Everton have held talks with Nuno Espírito Santo to become the next Everton manager. Santo is being contacted by Farhad Moshiri, and his main challenger at this stage is David Moyes. However, Everton will not make any approach to David Moyes without the permission of West Ham United. Now, there's very clear there that there's Farhad Moshiri, who wants Nuno Espírito Santo, and there's a certain other member of Everton's board that clearly wants David Moyes. Now, like I said, David Moyes is done a good job at West Ham. In fact, David Moyes has done a brilliant job at West Ham. He's been absolutely fantastic over the last 6 months or so, 12 months or so, sorry. But David Moyes, for me anyway, in my personal opinion, and I'm more than happy to be proven wrong if he comes in and he does a great job, but in my personal opinion, David Moyes doesn't work under this current Everton regime. David Moyes doesn't work with Marcel being a director of football. He doesn't work with other people making the decisions. He doesn't work with, players that he mightn't necessarily have chosen being at the football club and having to manage those types of players. David Moyes is a manager who loves having that responsibility, loves having that those decisions to make on his own, and he wouldn't get that at Everton. Now, he got that at Everton 10 or 15 years ago because it was just him and Bill Kenwright. He's not going to get that at Everton now. He's not, and I just don't think it'd be a success. The next is coming from Football Insider, which says Everton chairman Bill Kenwright is pushing for West Ham's David Moyes to replace former manager Carlo Ancelotti. Any pursuit for Moyes is a long shot as he is in advanced talks with West Ham over a new contract. So there you go. I'm not really interested in the David Moyes stuff, to be honest, because I don't think he'd work, but he seems to be a contender. He seems to be a top contender at the moment. Sky Sports reported yesterday that Everton will open talks with Nuno Espírito Santo later today. The former Wolves manager and West Ham's David Moyes are front runners. The Metro said Everton had to battle with Crystal Palace for former Wolves manager Nuno Espírito Santo after Farhad Moshiri has identified the Portuguese manager as his first choice to replace former Everton manager Carlo Ancelotti. So there you go. There's a lot of talk surrounding Nuno Espírito Santo. Like I said before, Nico Schera, who isn't the most reliable source on the planet, but nevertheless, he said that Everton are in advanced talks with Nuno Espírito Santo, and it would likely be a 3-year contract. So a lot of talk about Nuno Espírito Santo at the moment. It does seem like he could be the number one name on the list for Everton Football Club, as is just said in a lot of those reports from the Daily Mail, from the Metro, from Sky Sports, to state that it's Nuno or David Moyes as the front runners for the Everton job. And look, out of those two, I would rather have Nuno Espírito Santo. I'm not massive on Nuno Espírito Santo, to be honest with you. I'm really, really not. I just think that he's shown weakness at Wolves. Look, he had 2 or 3 very good seasons at Wolves. He was brilliant in the season that they got promoted into the Premier League. They were absolutely excellent in the Championship. He then had a couple of really strong seasons in the Premier League. A couple of seasons ago and the season before last, he was absolutely fantastic. Wolves were challenging for Europe. I think they even got into Europe on one, maybe 2 occasions. They were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant, Wolves. They were lovely to watch. They got good, quick, technical players that could get forward. They could score goals. Last season, it wasn't too great for him. I think a number of reasons were to blame for that. One of them was because of this whole transition from what is a 5 at the back or a 3 at the back formation to, trying to get back into a 4 at the back formation, and it really didn't work for Nuno. And this is my biggest issue with Nuno Espírito Santo, is that he'd gone from, and I know Wolves fans will say we were in a transition period, and I get that he's had injuries, and we'll talk about that in a second, but Nuno struggled massively and found it very, very difficult to switch formations from a 5 at the back to a 4 at the back. Now, again, I get that football's not an easy sport, and I'm not sitting here trying to, play down how difficult that might be with the squad of players that he had, but it shows to me that Nuno Espírito Santo is very good with plan A when he's got the players available to him and he can play nice football and he could be an attacking team and he can get forward and he can hurt teams. They've had some brilliant wins over the last couple of years. Man City away, I think they beat Liverpool away, I think they beat Arsenal away as well. But when he asked to revert to a plan B because plan A wasn't working or plan A needed changing, he massively, massively struggled. He really, really did. I mean, they struggled to score. goals last season at any point. I think they struggled to score any more than one goal in games. So Joe is in the comments, by the way. Joe does the graphics for the stream. Thank you, Joe. He says, as I said last night, Cam Nuno has achieved European football twice in 3 years, the equivalent of Everton in 10 years. Great to see him, Cam. Thank you very much, mate. He has, and he has been a success at Wolves, and if you speak to Wolves fans, they'll say that Nuno would be a great appointment for Everton, and he'd come in and he'd really sort of, he'd take the club and he'd sort of embrace the club, and he'd embrace what the club's about and where the club want to be. And like I said, at this point, given what's just happened with Carlo Ancelotti, and given all of the spiel that Carlo Ancelotti had said over the last couple of months or so, I'm really not interested in a manager coming in and blating a load of shite about how much he loves the football club and how good it is and how it's the biggest club in the world and the best club in the world and he wants to be here forever. I'm not interested in it. Don't even bother coming out and saying any of that stuff. Just come out and do your job. Carrick says he was forced to switch formations. Cam losing Doherty and Johnny through long-term injuries. Their main wing-backs was a huge loss, so they couldn't really do the five at the back with the wing-backs without them. Exactly. And that's me worry with Nuno. I'm not saying that he was just turned to crap for no reason. He had injuries. He lost players. He lost Diego Jota to the other lot. He lost Raul Jimenez to an absolutely horrible injury that you couldn't even predict. It was a shocking injury, and he's still suffering from that. Nuno had a lot of injuries last season. He did, and Wolves had a lot of injuries last season, and that directly impacted their season. Of course, it did. It would to any football club, and ultimately losing the likes of Doherty, Johnny, like I said, Jota, Jimenez, all had a massive knock-on effect on how Wolves were able to play. And like you said, they weren't able to play that five at the back formation because they didn't have the wing-backs to do that job. But my biggest worry with that is that Nuno Espírito Santo was caught out when his team picked up injuries and when his team had players that were unavailable. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Everton are a side that near enough every season have every player out injured throughout the course of a season. Luca Dean, 3 months out injured, needed surgery. Alan, 2 months out injured. Decore, 12 weeks out injured. James injured throughout the course of the season multiple times. Dom had been injured. Michael Keane, Yerry Mina, all suffered with injury problems. Seamus Coleman suffered with injury problems. So Nuno isn't coming into a club in Everton that are the ultimate optimal level of fitness and don't get any injuries. We have more injuries than anybody. So how is Nuno going to be able to cope with a squad that are constantly having to take players out because they're injured? I.e., Yerry Mina being in there 1 week and the next week not being in there. Luca Dean picking up an injury that's going to keep him out for a couple of months and having to be taken out. Nuno showed last season, and it's unfortunate because I like Nuno and I think he plays good football, and Joe's right and everyone's right in the comments that says, he's achieved European football more times in the last couple of years than Everton have in 10, and that's right. That's absolutely right. You're spot on. And I think when Nuno's got a full squad and everybody's working on the same and singing off the same hymn sheet, he's a manager that can get into those European places, and he's a good manager. But it's when things go wrong, we really should be, the sign of a good anything, good manager, good footballer, good, carpenter, good carpet fitter, good cook, good accountants, good car dealership man, good YouTuber, good cup of tea maker. The key to a good anything is that everyone can look brilliant when things are going right. Everyone can look hunky-dory and absolutely fantastic, and it's boss this. We've got all the players fit and we're playing lovely football and we're going to be in Europe. This is great. The key to a good anything is how good those people can look when things aren't going so right, how they react when things are going wrong, how they pick themselves back up when they've been knocked down. And I just have real issues with Nuno Espírito Santo in that last season at Wolves. Yes, he had a lot of things against him, injuries, selling players and having to change the formation and having to change the style, but he could never get back to that form of what he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. He just seemed to never settle, and that really does worry. It really does worry me. It does, and I sort of I just have massive worries about Nuno. Listen, out of a lot of the names on the list, you go Nuno, and then looking further down, Eddie Howe, Marco Silva was linked yesterday, which we won't even bother talking about for too much time. Frank Lampard, Roberto Martinez, Sean Dyche, Vitor Pereira, David Moyes. I'd rather Nuno than a lot of those names, put it that way. I'd really rather Nuno than a lot of those names. But I question it, and the way in which I'm trying to look at things here is I'm trying to look at things and think, would Nuno Espírito Santo be at Everton in 18 months' time? I couldn't see it, to be honest. I couldn't see it. Look, maybe he'd come in and I'll be massively wrong, and maybe I'll be sitting in 18 months' time and Everton will be in Europe, and Nuno will have brought in loads of sexy Portuguese players that are actually decent at football, not like the Portuguese player that we've got at the moment. And Everton will be absolutely booming, and I'll be sitting here going, get in, I'm made up to be wrong. Nuno's come in and done a fantastic job. But I just can't see it. I just think Everton are a club that, again, we said with the injuries, constant injuries, players constantly leaving the club, constantly, being out in big games, and I just don't know how Nuno would be able to cope with that. Sidan's in the comments says, Cam, would you take Brendan Rodgers? I think Brendan Rodgers is an absolutely fantastic manager, to be honest. Obviously, he's got that Liverpool connection, which puts a lot of Evertonians off, and I understand that. There's actually a name that I haven't even bothered mentioning on this thing that I'm gonna put down now to mention him. He'll never happen, but I'm gonna mention him anyway. But Brendan Rodgers is a fantastic manager, and I would take Brendan Rodgers, to be honest, because I think Brendan Rodgers could turn Everton into a consistent European challenging team and a cup-winning team, as he's just done with Leicester. And if he does that, I'm not really asked about the Liverpool connection. I'm not really asked about who he's managed previously, or whether he liked living in Liverpool, or whether he likes and has a good relationship with the football club. If you were to say to me, Cam, now Brendan Rodgers comes into Everton next week, I'm not saying he will, by the way, and I'm not saying it's realistic, just for argument's sake. One like, it's 100 likes, thank you very much, really, really do appreciate that, honestly, it means a massive amount to me. If you're enjoying, please do hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe. But if you were to say to me, right, Cam, now Brendan Rodgers comes into Everton, and he's got a good connection with Liverpool, he still likes Liverpool, but within 18 months you'll have won a trophy and be in the fighting for the Champions League, I'd say I'm not asked about how much he likes Liverpool. I'll have him. And I'm not saying he'll leave Leicester, by the way. Whammy says, why would Rodgers leave Leicester, a club going places, to work at Everton, a shit show? Scooby says Rodgers wouldn't step down. Brendan Rodgers isn't coming to Everton. He's not even in the equation. He's not even in the question. He's never coming to Everton. He's settled at Leicester and he's doing a brilliant job there. Just, I was asked the question, so there you go, I've answered it. But yeah, like I said, according to a lot of sources, Sky Sports, Daily Mail, various other journalists are stating that it looks at the moment that Nuno Espírito Santo is the front runner for the Everton job. David Moyes is his closest competitor, but I think that's more Bill Kenwright being desperate to bring David Moyes back to the football club, rather than David Moyes actually coming back to the football club. So I think it's going to be anybody. If you were to say to me, Cam, realistically, who do you think will be the next Everton manager? I would say Nuno Espírito Santo. Do I agree with it? Like I said, there's more positives to Nuno than there is to a lot of the other names on the list, but I still have me massive reservations around Nuno Espírito Santo. I really do. I think when it went wrong at Wolves last season, and when he was forced to make changes through injuries and tactical changes, he really struggled, and Wolves really struggled. And look, I also don't want Everton to play a 5 at the back either. So if he's going to come in and adopt that 5 at the back, and that's the only thing he can do, then we shouldn't be looking at a manager, and I'm not saying Nuno is a one-sick pony, but we shouldn't be looking at a manager who comes in and goes, I can only play this formation, I can only play this style. Because yeah, you might win a lot of games, you might win games playing in that style, but you will never be anything more than a mid-table Premier League team if you can't adjust the way in which you play, if you can't adjust your style, if you can't go into one game and play a certain formation in a certain way, and then 3 days later go into another game and play a completely different way. That's how you win. You only become, there's the only way you can be a top Premier League club by sticking to the same style and the same philosophy and the same way of working constantly, week in, week out, no matter who you are playing, is if you have the best teams in the league, best players in the league. We don't have the best players bloody at Everton. The under-23s have probably beat our first team. So we aren't in a situation at the moment to say, well, we can afford to play the same way week in, week out, the same style, the same tactic week in, week out. Because we haven't got the squad, we haven't got the quality of players to do that. If you're Manchester City, yeah, you can do that. Because more often than not, the players you've got are much better than the players that you're coming up against. So, of course, you're going to beat most teams. We haven't got that luxury. We haven't got those quality of players. So, more often than not, we're going to need to constantly keep chopping and changing the way and the style in which we do things. And I just think Nuno Espírito Santo struggles with that. I really, really do. But there you go. The latest, of course, like I said, coming from Nico Schera, who isn't the most reliable source, but he said that talks are in progress between Everton and Nuno Espírito Santo is believed to be a 3-year contract. Also, Liverpool Echo saying it is believed that talks have already begun with former Wolves manager Nuno Espírito Santo. However, Everton are not close to making an appointment. We know, of course, from the Echo as well that Marcel Brands has got a big part to play in the appointment of the new manager. Daily Mail saying Everton have held talks with Nuno Espírito Santo. He's been contacted by Managerial, and his main challenger is David Moyes. And then, like I said, various other sources over the last 48 hours or so talking about Nuno Espírito Santo, including Sky, to be a very realistic replacement for Carlo Ancelotti. So there you go. Nuno Espírito Santo, let us know your thoughts on him in the comment section down below. We will get into the live comments shortly. By the way, if you're enjoying and you're watching, please do leave a like. Really, really do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Like I said, we will be getting back into the comments in a moment. If you could share the stream, it would mean a fantastic amount to me as well. Mitchell says, Nuno wouldn't sign Portuguese players necessarily. It's Mendes, the agent he's given the elite players. Matinho, Neves, Sayore, Semedo, Pazicio would all fly into the Everton team. That's a fair point. That's a very, very fair point. Andre Gomes would fly into the Wolves team as well. So maybe we can do a little swap deal, Nuno for Andre Gomes. Even though Nuno isn't contacted by Wolves anymore, can Wolves just please sign Andre Gomes? But yeah, Nuno looks like the front runner. And at this current moment, at 8 minutes past 12 on the 3rd of June 2021, Nuno looks like the most realistic manager to come in and take over at Everton. Whether we like it or not, that looks like the most realistic situation. Anyway, on to the next name, David Moyes. As I've just mentioned, with all of those different sources there and different journalists, David Moyes seems to be the other front runner for the job. He seems to be the biggest competitor to Nuno. He seems to be a name that Bill Kenwright is massively fond of. Absolutely no surprise there then. Bill Kenwright wanted David Moyes before Carlo Ancelotti come in, and Bill Kenwright wanted David Moyes ever since David Moyes left Everton, really. So there's no massive surprise that there's members of the Everton board, and it mightn't just be Bill Kenwright, it might be other members of the Everton board as well, but there's no massive surprise that there's members of that Everton board that would happily see David Moyes return to Everton. And look, let's give David Moyes a lot of respect here. David Moyes has done an absolutely fantastic job at West Ham this season. He's done an absolutely unbelievable job there. He's been brilliant. He's gotten them into European football. They've played some really nice football. He's brought in some fantastic players. Souček's come in and done a fantastic job. Soufal has come in and done a fantastic job. Jesse Lingard was given that trust and that faith and come in and was absolutely brilliant for the 6 months that he was there. Whether he'll sign on a permanent obviously is to be seen. But David Moyes has done a brilliant job at West Ham United. He really has. And like I said earlier, David Moyes, I think, does a fantastic job wherever he goes, as long as he's given the reign to do what he wants, as long as he's given the chance, and well, not the chance, but as long as he's given the responsibility to go, right, you bring in your style of player, you play the way you want to play, you play the football you want to play, and we as a board will sit back and go, yeah, do you know what, actually, that's that's doing well there. When he says Nuno has no connections, he didn't recruit at Wolves. He was handed players. There you go. And Philip says, my mum was 95 yesterday. Say hi to Joan. Cam, she's had true lifetime blue. Is right, Joan. Nice one. Happy birthday. I hope you have a fantastic day. And yeah, up the toffees. Happy birthday to Joan. Everyone, say happy birthday to Joan in the comments. But yeah, I have real worries that David Moyes wouldn't be able to work under this current regime. I really, really don't. And like I said, some would say, we'll get rid of Brands then, because Moyes is the best man for the job. Moyes can come in and do a job. Brands is going nowhere, and Brands shouldn't go anywhere either, because he's been here for 3 years. What you think, whether you think he's had a good enough job is all down to everybody's different opinions. Everybody has different opinions about that. But he's here for another 3 years. So Brands isn't going anywhere. He's going absolutely nowhere for the next couple of seasons. So whoever comes in has to be able to work with Marcel Brands. And I just don't know if David Moyes could work with Marcel Brands. I might be completely wrong. I might be completely, again, over my head. David Moyes might be thinking, of course, I can work with Marcel Brands. I'd love to work with somebody like Marcel Brands. But I just think that David Moyes strikes me as a manager, as we're seeing with West Ham now, and as we've seen with Everton for over a decade, that likes that responsibility, that likes to be the man that's making decisions on transfers, that likes to be the man that's basically running the club from top to bottom. on the pitch and off the pitch, and he wouldn't be that at Everton. He really, really wouldn't be that at Everton, and that's my biggest worry, is that if David Moyes was to come in, it would just go drastically wrong, because he probably wouldn't get every player he wanted. Should he get his decisions? Look, there's a big argument about that, isn't he? Look at the players he's brought in for West Ham. Would I have Soufal? Absolutely. Would I have Souček? Absolutely. Would I have had Jesse Lingard? At the time, I said, no, I don't want Jesse Lingard. In hindsight, absolutely. He was exactly what Everton needed. So, maybe David Moyes, if he was to come in, should be allowed to make decisions on signings, but ultimately, that's why Marcel Brands is in the job. Like I said, if you bring in a manager and you say, right, you as a manager, you're going to have every final say on whoever we bring in, or you're going to decide who we bring in, then Marcel Brands is merely an advisor. He's not a director of football. We've given that trust in Marcel Brands. We've given that trust in the infrastructure and the way in which Marcel Brands does things and the way in which having a director of football works. Now, we have to back that. We can't go against that with the managerial appointments. And I just worry that David Moyes would go against that. Plus, I also think David Moyes is in a fantastic situation at West Ham now. He's been offered a new contract. He's probably going to get offered a nice little wage from them as well. He's done fantastic, and West Ham will be absolutely desperate to keep a hold of David Moyes, by the way. So the easy option for David Moyes is to just sign on the dotted line at West Ham and not even worry about Everton. But then there's another part of me that thinks David Moyes would come running back to Everton if he had the chance. He'd come absolutely running back, because it's Everton, and we're a bigger club than West Ham, and we're in a with, again, historically, and that's no disrespect to West Ham. I know there's a couple of West Ham fans in the comments, and really good lads as well. But that's no disrespect. But in terms of globally and as a football club, Everton are. But I just think David Moyes will look at it and think, no, do you know what? I'm happy at West Ham here. I'm happy. I'm doing well. It's a big risk to move, and I don't think Everton should be going for David Moyes, because I just don't think he works in the current regime. I really, really don't. If you're enjoying, by the way, leave a like. Don't forget to share the stream. Just drop below 300 viewers. If you could hit it again, it would be a great deal to me. Massive thanks to everybody for watching. Like I said, we will get back into the live comments shortly. So if you are watching, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. Let's get in to some of the other names then. So it's clear from a lot of journalists and a lot of reports, i.e. Sky Sports, Daily Mail, Liverpool Echo, various other publications that are coming out. Liverpool Echo haven't said anything about David Moyes, but various publications that are coming out and saying that it seems that Nuno Espírito Santo is the number one target for Everton. A lot of reliable journalists saying he is in talks with Everton, and that those talks have begun, but a decision isn't yet close to being made. So it seems like Nuno Espírito Santo is the number one target. He's the most likely name at this moment to take over at Everton. And it seems that David Moyes is below Nuno Espírito Santo in the list. And what I would say is that reeks to me of Farhad Moshiri going, I'm the majority shareholder, I want Nuno. And Bill Kenwright going, I'm the chairman, I want David Moyes, and therefore those two are at the top of the list. And hopefully Marcel Brands comes in proper stone cold Steve Austin style and just goes, see you later Nuno, see you later David Moyes, I've got this boss, lovely, brilliant, dead sound fella who's boss at managing footy players and works with me and wants what I want and wants the best for the club. He's coming in, whoever that may be, but I doubt it. It'll probably be Nuno. And again, I've not got anything massively against Nuno. I just have me reservations, put it that way. I have me reservations. Anyway, a couple of other names on the list. We'll fly through them because there's a lot of these that I don't think have got any substance whatsoever, and I don't think will be coming to Everton. Eddie Howe is one of them. Do I think Eddie Howe has got any substance to it? Yes, I do, because I think Everton have been rumoured with Eddie Howe multiple times before, on multiple occasions before, and I think that if it was up to, again, certain members at Everton, I think Eddie Howe would be a top choice for them. Listen, I don't particularly dislike Eddie Howe, and I think he done an okay job at Bournemouth for the time he was there. Obviously, it went stale towards the end, and he ended up being relegated, and it ended quite sourly for Eddie Howe at Bournemouth in terms of league position and stuff like that. But that's Bournemouth. That's Bournemouth Football Club, and again, no disrespect to Bournemouth, we're Everton Football Club. Sorry for the language, we're Everton fucking Football Club. We're not Bournemouth, we're Everton. And Eddie Howe done a decent job at Bournemouth and kept them afloat for a large part of his career there. They then got relegated in the last season. His achievements at Bournemouth shouldn't be something to look at and go, right, he'd do really well at Everton because he done really well at Bournemouth. It baffles me. I'm really not excited by the Eddie Howe signing. Look, he's a boyhood Evertonian. I get that, and you know he might have certain philosophies and certain ways of playing and managing. Certain ways of working and managing players that would make him a success at Everton. But I just don't want Eddie Howe to be the next manager of Everton. I just don't think he's good enough. And again, I see Eddie Howe in the same way as I saw Roberto Martinez, in the same way as I saw Marco Silva, and that is that within 12, 18 months or so, they won't be here. And I honestly think if Eddie Howe comes into Everton Football Club within 12 or 18 months, he won't be at Everton Football Club, and that's exactly what we don't need. And that's why, by the way, it's so important, like I said earlier on, that we allow Marcel Brands to make every signing he wants to make and bring in any player he wants to bring in, so that if we bring in a manager like Eddie Howe or Nuno or David Moyes or whatever, and they don't work, when they leave, we're not left with their players that they wanted that we now don't want and we don't need. We're left with the players that Marcel Brands and the club wanted, and we just bring in a manager to manage those players. That mightn't be how football works, but that's how I see football working, and that's how I see other football clubs working, i.e. Chelsea. That's what Chelsea done last summer. Did Chelsea bring in Timo Werner and Kai Havertz for Frank Lampard? No, they didn't. They brought in Timo Werner and Kai Havertz for Chelsea Football Club. They gave Frank Lampard the opportunity to manage them. They realised quickly into the season that he couldn't manage them, so they took Frank Lampard out and they brought in a manager who could manage them. It's as easy as that. And they won a Champions League doing it. So Eddie Howe had been rumoured by various different sources before Carlo Ancelotti had even officially left the football club. I think TalkSport had rumoured that Eddie Howe was a name that Everton were looking at, and a name that was on Everton's list. Let me just try and get up the actual article. So the Daily Express said that Frank Lampard, Roberto Martinez, Sean Dyche, Nuno Espírito Santo, Eddie Howe, Vito Pereira and David Moyes are names that are amongst the list discussed by the Everton board in a meeting that was when it became quite apparent that Carlo Ancelotti was leaving the football club. And yeah, a couple of other journalists over the last couple of days have said that Eddie Howe is on Everton's list to replace Carlo, which is unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but ultimately, there you go. Paul Joyce, who is a very reliable source, he said about David Moyes is an option to replace outgoing Everton manager Carlo Ancelotti, and he also said David Moyes, Nuno Espírito Santo and Eddie Howe are all likely to come under consideration as the club begins to formulate a shortlist of candidates to replace Carlo Ancelotti at Goodison Park. So there you go. Eddie Howe seems to be on the list. Whether we like that or not is a different question. I don't particularly like it, to be honest, but there you go. It is what it is. I'm sure some people will like it. I'm sure some people won't like it. The next name that falls onto the list is a name that I think will divide opinion massively. We will either want him, some of us, or we really won't want him, and that is Duncan Ferguson. Now, Duncan Ferguson, I'm not just bringing him up for the sake of bringing him up. By the way, according to the Daily Mail late last night, Duncan Ferguson wants to be considered for the vacant Everton manager position and believes he is ready to take over. Now, this one is going to split opinion, absolutely going to split opinion, of course it will, and we're going to sit down probably over the next coming days or so. Look, next week is going to be full of content, by the way. I'll take this moment to mention this. So if you are watching live, massive thanks to everybody for watching live. We will get into the live comments shortly again. We will, so really do appreciate that, honestly. We'll get through some of them now, actually. Ryan says, Terry, you watched that squad did with the top manager. Johnny says, Rodriguez form fell off last season when Carlos switched to a defensive mentality, play progressive and further forward, he'd do well. Brainhead says, the money we've spent on the players we've got is a joke. Go get Amorim and beg him to bring Paulinho and Goncalves with him. There you go. James says, no one knows who is going to be our manager. People need to stop throwing names. I'm just talking about the names that have been put about in the media. Jack the Lad says, if you get Eddie Aldina's gone, Richie's gone, Mina gone, Alan gone. Potentially. James says, Phil Neville in talks. I don't believe that. Joseph says, would you take Sarri? He's of that Carlo Ancelotti ilk, isn't he? But I don't necessarily think he's what Everton need. Paul says, Big Duncan. We're going to talk about Duncan in a moment. Johnny says, Paul, why can't just award the job to a fella who I don't know what does at Everton, except for Bill wanting ex-players managed in the Championship for a couple of years, get out the shallow end. That's fair enough. Brainhead says, Amorim from Sporting would be my choice. Siddharth said, Cam, who will be your first choice? I really don't know. I honestly really don't know, honestly. Wayne says, Eddie, how is Eddie getting mentioned? There you go. Andrew says, you're making it sound like Everton are a big club. We are a big club, we're a massive club. Johnny says, agree with Cam, read Moyes, no way him and Brands work together. David Moyes can sign bargains. Anytime he opens the checkbook, it's a flop. Teddy says, don't forget what he did to this club and us supporters when he ran his contract down and buggered off to Man United. Very fair point on David Moyes, of course. Wayne says, we have so much building to do. Forget Europe and Champions League and top 6. We literally are the most dysfunctional club in the league. We really are, mate. We really are. Ryan says, it's going to be Nuno. I've had enough of 30 plus years supporting Everton. I'm fed up. I think we're all sort of feeling like that, mate. Jonathan says, I'm all for Moyes personally. Fair enough. Wayne says, Terry, you watched... Oh, we mentioned that one. Les says, something very wrong at Everton. It won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. It's hard to look elsewhere to that, isn't it? Will and Newt says, you can take Steve Bruce off our hands. No time, mate. You're all right. We're not that desperate. Johnny says, no chance Hammers will leave under contract for 1 year and on good wages. Miss loads of games. Who'd be looking to bring him in? Daft. It's a fair point. Maybe into Miami. I don't know. Somewhere in the MLS. Just throwing names out there. Wayne says, Moyes would be the best man for the job at Everton right now, but don't think he'd be welcome back. Rafa is probably the best bet, can make shit players better. Yeah, Rafa Benitez hasn't been rumoured, though, with Everton. I don't even think he was rumoured to be on the list of candidates Everton are looking at. He's just a name that fans are sort of throwing out there. Joey Barton hasn't been considered Norfolk and Cheese. I refuse to believe that. And then John says, Ruben Amorado from Sport. We just mentioned that one. Ben says, who do you think Hammers will go to? I don't know. I'm just in this frame where I just don't see James Rodriguez being at Everton for much longer. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just because of everything that's gone on over the last couple of days. So maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, like I was saying before, loads and loads of content coming up over the next couple of days and weeks. So big thanks to everybody in the comments. By the way, if you are watching live, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Please do subscribe. We hit 4,000 subscribers 2 days ago on Tuesday night, and we're already over 4,100, which is absolutely unbelievable. The support means a massive amount to me. I know Everton are a shambles at the moment and it's all up in the air, but the support honestly really does mean a massive amount to me, so thank you all very much. We're going to be talking to Tom T Logic 1991, who is a recruitment analyst tomorrow. We're going to be talking about potential replacements for Carlo Ancelotti again. We're going to be talking next week specifically about Nuno Espírito Santo in his own stream. We're going to be talking about Duncan Ferguson in his own stream and various other topics and discussions as well, away from the managerial discussion to freshen it up a little bit. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you have subscribed, massive thanks. Please do stay subscribed. Hit that notification bell as well. I believe it lets you know when we're live and lets you know when we're doing videos and stuff. So if you hit that notification bell, you'll be able to get involved in much more of these live streams. As I do with every live stream, if you're new, I try and get involved with as many live comments as I can, because this isn't just my opinion. This isn't just me talking. It's a conversation. It's a discussion between Evertonians, and I love to give everybody, and read out what everybody's got to say and get involved with the conversation. So big thanks. Anyway, Duncan Ferguson, big Duncan Ferguson. Like I said, he's going to be a name that, pardon me, splits opinion. You're either going to get Evertonians that want to bring Duncan Ferguson in, or you're going to get Evertonians that really don't want to bring Duncan Ferguson in. Listen, I'm not going to lie, I really do. Alex says, fantastic lives cam, well done on 4K. Thank you very much, Alex. Really do appreciate that, mate. Honestly, it means a massive amount to me. I honestly, listen, I can't sit here and lie, and I'm not afraid to put my head on the chopping block. I'm at that point now where I'm just like, fuck it, give it to Duncan Ferguson. If it doesn't work in 12 and 18 months, then it doesn't work. He leaves the football club and replace him with someone else. Listen, I understand everybody that's saying he's got no experience. He needs to go and manage a championship club, and he needs to go and manage elsewhere to get some experience and to sort of, to sort of figure himself out as a manager before he comes and takes on the Everton job. It's too big for him. It's a massive job. It's with a massive club, and it's too big of a role. I get all of that. I really do get all of that. But I sort of look at some of the other candidates and I think, right, would I rather have Duncan Ferguson, by the way, who knows the football club inside out, has been an assistant manager of the football club for 3 or 4 years, worked under Carlo Ancelotti, who, again, as much as we mightn't like him now, is still one of the most successful managers in Everton's history, as much as he's a bit of a fool. He's been a top level Premier League coach, and by that I mean the highest level of coaching you can be at in the Premier League for 6, 7, 8 years, something like that now. He would indefinitely without a shadow of a doubt, get 150% out of every one of those players, week in, week out. Again, he mightn't have the tactical prowess or the tactical sort of brain to get us into the top 6 or get us challenging for titles or get us challenging for leagues, but are we really there at the moment? Let's be honest, we're a mid-table mediocre club. What he would get is 150% out of every single one of those players, and as we know in the Premier League, as we've discussed a number of times before, if you can come up against teams and you can work harder and you can beat them for energy and beat them for basically want to win the game, you will win a lot of games of football doing that. A lot of teams come to Goodison Park, and have they got more quality than Everton? No. Are they a better team than Everton? No. Have they got a better, or had they had a better manager than Everton last season? No. But they come to Goodison Park and they beat Everton because they wanted it more, they worked harder. Again, APG says Dunk loves Everton, but can he attack top players? Well, here's one of my positives with Duncan Ferguson, as I think Duncan Ferguson will be more than happy to say to Marcel Brands, you do what you do, mate. You bring in whoever you want to bring in. You bring in the type of player, the profile of player, the style of player who you think Everton needs to improve, and I'll work off of them. And then if Duncan comes in and is here for 12, 18 months and doesn't work, then he leaves the football club. No sentiment, but it's Duncan Ferguson, you can't sack him. If he doesn't work and he's not good enough, then he leaves the football club, you move him on. He becomes a head coach. He's not a manager, he's a head coach. You move him on if he doesn't work. No issue with it whatsoever. If it does work, it could be very good for Everton. And like I said, that game against Chelsea, Duncan Ferguson, after Marco Silva was sacked, before Carlo Ancelotti come in, Duncan Ferguson went into a dressing room full of dejected players who didn't have any confidence whatsoever, any belief in themselves whatsoever, and he got them playing for the badge, he got them playing for the football club, he got them fighting for the shirt, he got them fighting for the fans, he got them putting in 110%, throwing tackles in, throwing challenges in, getting in referees' faces, getting in opposition players' faces, and we turned up on that day against a very good Chelsea side, a Chelsea side that were challenging for Champions League football at that time, and we beat them because we battled, and we fought, and we wanted it more, and the emotion, that was obviously the Merseyside derby last season was unbelievable, and it was, arguably the best Everton moment for a long time, but the Chelsea game, being at Goodison Park there, I'm not a very emotional guy, I don't cry very often. I was in tears on that day, I was in absolute tears on that day, seeing Duncan running up and down the touchline, seeing the players running up to him when Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored the third goal, jumping involved in him. It showed that these players wanted to play for Duncan Ferguson. These players believed in everything that Duncan Ferguson said. Now, whether Duncan Ferguson's a top coach or not, whether he's got the experience, whether he'll be able to take us to that next level, whether he'll be able to beat some of the bigger teams away from home, that's all a different question and a different scenario, and again, he mightn't be at that level that we need to take us forward. But let's be honest, what at Everton at the moment, I think some of us are maybe sort of getting caught up in thinking that we need a manager that's going to take us into being a Champions League team or take us into being a Premier League winning team. We've just had that manager and he's fucked off. He's fucked off to Real Madrid. What at Everton at the moment? Everton are a team that are one step away from consistent European challenges. No, we're not whatsoever. Everton are a team that are one step away from winning the Premier League. No, we're not whatsoever. Everton are a team that are in an absolute shambles. Everton is a club at the moment and an absolute shambles. What we need, and CBAKL says, fully agree, Big Dunk with Brands in charge of transfers makes the sense for me. Get some identity back into the football. Tim says, hi all in chat. Hi Tim. That Chelsea game's insane. No, it was. Says Sai. That's exactly my point. We have lost our identity. What at Everton Football Club at the moment? What are we? Who are we? What do we play for? What do we fight for? What do we believe in? What's our identity? What's our motto? What's our... Rose says, CBA talking about it anymore, Cam? Yeah, I get your feeling, Rose. Tim says, hit the like button. Thank you very much, Tim. What at Everton at the moment? We're nothing but a shambles. We're nothing but a football club that has lost its identity, that it's lost its way of thinking, it's lost who it is and what we fight for and what we believe in, and the underdogs, dogs of war mentality. We fight for the shit, we battle at 110%. We've lost all of that by being caught up in trying to become something that we're not, and that's a Premier League winning team. We're not a Premier League winning team at the moment. That's a team that are competing constantly in the Champions League. We haven't got the quality of player to do that. So since Farhad Moshiri has come into the football club, we've gotten caught up in having all of this money and all of this, ability to go and bring in all of these top quality players and managers, and we've completely gotten lost in what we actually are as a football club, what we believe in. And what we should have done when Farhad Moshiri come in was kept hold of that identity, kept hold of what we are, kept hold of who we are and what we believe in and what we fight for, and added the sprinkle of quality on top of that. Just volley me, Mike. Added the the boss manager on top of that, added the brilliant players on top of that, and then taken that step up. But we haven't. We've got completely lost in thinking that we're something that we're not, and that we're this unbelievably, people say Everton aren't a big club anymore. Everton will always be a big football club. Of course, we are one of the most successful football clubs in England. We're not a big team anymore, and we've lost our identity. Now, Duncan Ferguson mightn't be able to come in and be tactically the best manager we need for the job. He mightn't be able to come in and, take us to winning the Champions League or winning the Premier League. But what he almost certainly would do would come in and get 150% out of those players every time they put that Everton shirt on and stepped onto that pitch. And that is what we need at the moment. We needed identity back at this football club. Even if Duncan comes in on a 12-month contract, gets some identity back into the football club, gets us that feel-good factor, that underdog mentality back, that, what we are as a club back, and then you bring in a manager to take over from Duncan to add that bit of tactical prowess and tactical quality on top of that, then yeah. But at the moment, what are Everton? Everton are nothing at the moment. We've got no identity. We've got no, we're as a football club, where are we going? Where have we been? Where are we going? Where do we need to be? Where do we want to go? They're all questions that none of us can really answer, because we've lost that identity. We really have lost that identity. And I get that with Duncan Ferguson, it was very emotional based, and I get that there was the whole honeymoon period of a new manager and all of that sort of stuff. I get it. And like I said, I understand he's not had the experience, and he could do with going to a championship club and getting the experience, this, that, and the other. I understand it all. But let's look at the list of managers we're being linked with. Eddie Howe, Nuno Espírito Santo, David Moyes, Marco Silva was in there yesterday, Frank Lampard, Roberto Martinez, Sean Dyche, Vito Pereira. Really? Do any of them go, actually, yeah, they're going to come in and be unbelievable for Everton? Jedi says it'd be a big risk with Duncan. It would be a big risk. It would be an absolutely tremendous risk. And if he wasn't to work out, he'd have to leave the football club. Tim says, bye all in chat, stay safe. Cheers, Tim. Stay safe to you, mate. But it's a risk that could be a high reward. Mr. Monk says, I don't know if Duncan will be ruthless enough with the players he knows. Well, and that's it. And listen, I don't know. I don't know Duncan. I've never sat down with him personally. I don't know whether he'd have the ability to go into a dressing room at half time or full time and say, this is dreadful, you need to be better, demand more, give it 110%, look at those fans. I don't know if he'd have that motivation. But given what Dominic Calvert-Lewin has said about him, and how Dominic Calvert-Lewin said his best memory in an Everton shirt was that Chelsea game, given what various other players have said about him, then it seems like he's got that ability to be able to motivate the squad. It seems like he's got that, like I said, that mentality and that personality to be able to motivate the squad. So, again, like I said, I get why people are against it, and we're going to do a stream on Duncan Ferguson a little bit later on in the next week. It'll probably be now, where we just talk again for the whole stream about him and why he could or couldn't come in. But it's clear, according to the Daily Mail, Duncan Ferguson wants the job at Everton. He wants the job. He has said that he wants to be considered by the Everton board, which is again, it says a lot about Duncan Ferguson, doesn't it? He said when he took over as caretaker before Carlo Ancelotti come in, he didn't want the job. He wanted Everton to go and get whoever is best for the football club. Now he's saying he wants the job, and it is very mixed. I'm looking through the comments on the tweet now, and it's unbelievably mixed. Some people saying no, don't go anywhere near him. Some people saying yeah, give it to Dunk, whatever. He couldn't do any worse than what we've got at the moment. I just think whoever comes in needs to be able to instill an identity back into Everton Football Club, needs to be able to instill a mentality, find out what we are, get back to what we are and what we were and what we are as a football club. And it's no good just bringing a manager in who again is going to be here for 12 or 18 months, fail and then leave. I think Duncan could bring that identity back to Everton Football Club, could bring that positivity, that dogs of war mentality back, and then another manager can maybe come in and take over and just accelerate that with their tactics and their experience, etc. But whoever comes in needs to be able to take Everton back to what we are and what we are as a football club, because we've lost it. We've absolutely lost it. Anyway, there's Duncan. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like I said, we'll be doing a stream next week talking more about Duncan. Jedi says Duncan will be competing against some really experienced managers. Pep, Klopp, Dyche, Bielsa, Thomas Tuchel. And then look at Ollie and Arteta. It will be a risk, but Ollie is taking over at United. There you go. Neil says Paulo Fonseca hasn't been mentioned. He was being looked at previously. Yeah, he hasn't been mentioned. He's been mentioned every time we've looked for a manager in the last 10 years, but he hasn't been mentioned at the moment. Remy says giving the job to Dunk is throwing him under the bus, maybe. Celtic says Hart says Dunk, but Ed says no. That's probably where I'm feeling at the moment. That's probably where a lot of us are sort of feeling, but there you go. Rose in the comments having a go at the comments. Is right, Rose. We love that. No, he hasn't got anything better to do, to be honest. I couldn't think of anything worse than being on a Liverpool's team and trying to wind people up, by the way. I honestly, I'd rather just go back to bed. I really, really would. Chairman says, of the board says, a manager that demands hard work and plays on the front foot will be appreciated. Joe says, I think Nuno will be great. He took Wolves into Europe with a worse squad than ours. Fair point. Jedi says, Ollie taking over at United will be similar to Duncan taking over at us, and Ollie, great for a few months, stabilised the club now, but still nowhere near where they should be. Fair enough. Aston says, I would just ignore lots of rumours at the moment. Ancelotti wasn't even linked with us last year until the last second. We were meant to be getting Pereira. Just wait. Fair point, mate. Fair point. And Sam says, just done with football cam. Feel like we could have the best manager and best players in the world and would somehow still finish 10th. Yeah, I think that's how we're all feeling at the moment, mate. Big Nod says Duncan's passion for Everton, but is a big no for me. Nuno has the experience and a decent record to bring us stability. Neto, Neres, Traore, so then instant squad improvements, but that's if they'd all come in. Nuno isn't Wolves. Nuno coming in wouldn't guarantee that the majority of the Wolves squad would want to move to Everton, so it's one of them. Anyway, let's get through some of these other names because we've been on here for a while. Saul says, Cam, the fact that you said I've come to the point of giving it to Dunk, good coach but no longevity in my eyes. Well, it is because, and it's not that I've come to the point of giving it to Dunk because I give up or I'm bored of the conversation, but it's because I've looked at the list and I honestly think, why not give it to Dunk and some of the names that are on the list? Anyway, let's fly through some of them. Marco Silva, the reason I bring him up is because Sky Sports said that they believe that Marco Silva's name was brought up during the meeting of potential candidates to replace Carlo Ancelotti. I don't believe that whatsoever. I think Sky Sports have laughed their heads off when writing that tweet out and thought, you know what, we'll wind a lot of Evertonians up saying this. And I just don't believe it. I don't believe it whatsoever. And if it is true, if it's even remotely true, whoever has brought Marco Silva's name up in that meeting needs to leave Everton Football Club right now. Right now. Not next week, not tomorrow, not next year. Go right now, because you'd be seriously thinking about bringing a manager who failed with the same group of players less than 2 years ago. Just go. If you're seriously considering that, just go. So he's a big no. I'm not even going to waste time speaking about him because he's a big no and I don't think it's true. Sergio Conceição, who is the Porto boss, he has been linked with the move to Everton. Again, like a lot of people saying in the live comments, there's a lot of rumours and a lot of managers being linked that just probably aren't going to come and are just being thrown in the name of the hat for the sake of clickbaiting. Clickbaiting. This was according to Sports Pete O'Rourke. He was a freelance sports journalist, relatively reliable, typically, but he has said that Porto manager Sergio Conceição, I don't know how to pronounce it, is in the frame for the Everton manager's job after the departure of Carlo Ancelotti. I don't really think this one's going to happen, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know an awful lot about him, but I just can't see it happening. I can't see him being top of Everton's list. Maybe he's on the list because we needed to compile a list and we needed to compile a load of managers, but I don't think he's on the list. Next one, of course, is Maurizio Sarri, who we mentioned before. This is according to Calcio Mercato, that Maurizio Sarri is in contention of returning to the Premier League and joining Everton. I think this one is just complete and utter paper talk, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anything in it whatsoever. I think it's a rumour that's been put out there purely to try and catch the attention of Evertonians or football fans and to try and start a conversation that's actually got no substance to it whatsoever. So I don't believe that. Ralf Rangnick is a name, of course, according to the Telegraph. Everton are considering German coach Ralf Rangnick as a target to replace Carlo Ancelotti. Look, Ralf Rangnick is a very good coach and has a lot of his own ideas and a lot of his own philosophies. And like I said earlier on in the stream, we saw that video, didn't we, of him talking about, oh, here we go. Wilfred Zaha has told Crystal Palace he wants to leave. that means he's going to be linked with Everton. Ralph Rangnick is a manager that's got his own philosophy in it, and he had that video that come out during the week, that was about bringing an identity back to a football club and getting a football club to their roots and keeping them at that, which I think is exactly what Everton need. Jimmy Mack says dead right, Cam, about our identity. It must come back to School of Science philosophy. Yeah, no, I agree. Do I think Ralph Rangnick's an option for Everton? Potentially. It's the same as Erik ten Hag, who, again, Ajax manager, who's been linked with Everton as well. But I think the both of them are just some interesting names that might have been put forward by Marcel Brands, actually, rather than some of the other members on the board. But again, with the both of them, I just can't see it happening. I really, really can't see it happening. We're going to talk more about Ralph Rangnick and Erik ten Hag tomorrow. We'll be joined live by Tom, T-Logic 1991 for tomorrow's live stream, and we're going to be talking much more about both of those managers, because they're managers that Tom is familiar with, as well as a couple of other names that Tom wants to throw in the hat as well. So join us tomorrow morning. It'll probably be around about 10, 11 o'clock again, and we'll be talking about those two as well. But just briefly, I don't think Rangnick will be the Everton manager, as much as some fans might want him. I might think he's the right fit, or he's the right suit. I just don't think he'll be the next Everton manager. And same with Erik ten Hag. To be honest, I can't see Erik ten Hag coming in either. Some people might disagree, some people might agree. But there you go. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. If you could subscribe, it would mean a great deal to me. Then we had a list that was thrown out at us from various different sources. Daily Express, who said that there's a number of... Chad says, get the likes up, lads. Cheers, Chad, really appreciate that. Sai says, is Everton attractive enough for top managers to come here? Everton and Farhad Moshiri have got a lot of money, and money attracts a lot of managers and a lot of different people to football clubs, as shown with Carlo Ancelotti, let's be honest. But a list was compiled by the Express of names that apparently were mentioned in a meeting between the Everton board for potential Carlo Ancelotti replacements. That list consisted of Frank Lampard, Roberto Martinez, Sean Dyche, Nuno Espírito Santo, Eddie Howe, Vito Pereira and David Moyes. Another couple of names that were thrown into that list is ex-Liverpool captain Steven Gerrard. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking on Steven Gerrard, because he's not coming to Everton. He'd never come to Everton because he hates us and we hate him, and that's because of that relationship between Everton and Liverpool, and that's fine. Steven Gerrard, if he wasn't Steven Gerrard, would probably be a perfect fit for Everton. He's young, he's dynamic, he's got fresh ideas, he knows how to manage players. He's come into a football club in Rangers, he's had that experience, he's done a brilliant job there, he's won them the league title for the first time in years. If he wasn't Steven Gerrard, I'd be all over bringing him in to Everton Football Club as the new manager. But he's Steven Gerrard, so there's no point in even entertaining the conversation, because he's not coming to Everton, and he wouldn't want to come to Everton either, and we wouldn't want him because of his history, and he'd come in. Same with Rafa Benitez, really. As much as I think a lot of Evertonians would accept Rafa Benitez more so than Steven Gerrard, if Rafa Benitez was to come into Everton, he'd automatically be coming in with a rod, on his back, really, and with that pressure of, you manage Liverpool, and if things go wrong here, if you lose the first couple of games of the season, or if you say something wrong in an interview or say something wrong in a press conference, you've already got that pressure behind you that you manage Liverpool and you're a Liverpool man and you're a Liverpool supporter. So I just don't think it would work whatsoever. But his name was brought up, apparently. Don't know why, because it's never happening. And as for the others, Frank Lampard, he's done a good job at Chelsea. I question whether or not he's got the experience and know how to get Everton out of the current situation that we are in, which is an absolute shambles, by the way. Lavovich says, if Gerrard become manager, they'll be checking for flying pigs. Gerrard's not going to become the Everton manager. There's not a chance Gerrard will become the Everton manager. There's just not a chance of that. I'm a no for Frank Lampard, for as much as that he might come in and, again, he's young and fresh ideas and he might galvanise, and he's had that experience at Derby and he's had that experience at Chelsea. I just don't think he got what it takes to get that identity back to Everton Football Club, which we've just said is exactly what we need. Roberto Martinez, no, massive no. For as good as the football was in the first season under Roberto Martinez, and for as nice as it was to watch, let's not forget his last 2 seasons at Everton Football Club, which consisted of us getting battered left, right and centre, losing Merseyside derbies in embarrassing manners, and then Roberto Martinez coming out and trying some way to spin a positive on them and say it wasn't actually that bad, when in fact it was actually disgraceful. So no for Roberto Martinez. Sean Dyche, no. Doesn't breathe any positivity, does it? Yeah, again, he's a good manager and he's done really, really well. Fruin says, Cam asked T-Logic tomorrow about Jesse March. Yeah, we'll be live with Tom tomorrow, so if you want to get involved in the live comments, again, 279 people currently watching. Thank you so much. Honestly, it means a massive amount to me. It really, really does. I really do appreciate it. If you are enjoying, please do hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Again, it means a massive amount to me. But yeah, we'll be asking Tom about a lot of different names tomorrow. But Sean Dyche is a no for me. Nuno, who we just mentioned before, of course. Eddie Howe, who we just mentioned before. David Moyes, who we just mentioned before. And Vitor Pereira, I think, was linked with the Everton job to take over from Roberto Martinez when he first left the football club. And that just shows exactly how Everton have progressed in the last 5 or 6 years. We haven't progressed. We're still being linked with the same names that we were being linked with when Roberto Martinez left 6 years ago, which is absolutely shocking. I don't know an awful lot about Vitor Pereira, to be honest with you. But I don't think he's done an awful lot since we were first rumoured with him, so I'd probably stay away from him. And then a couple of names that were sort of thrown in the hat that are not realistic, but I know what Everton fans and we all want us to go out and approach was, two, Antonio Conte being one, and Mauricio Pochettino being the other. Both look quite likely to be involved in the potential Tottenham job. Apparently, according to some very reliable journalists yesterday, Antonio Conte is in advanced talks with Tottenham to take over, and Mauricio Pochettino is on that list as well. Apparently he's happy at PSG as well. Again, neither of those managers are coming to Everton. For as much as we might want them to come to Everton, for as much as they might be the best manager out there for us to go and get, I think I said it on one of the streams yesterday or the day before. Antonio Conte doesn't last 5 minutes at Everton. He doesn't last 5 minutes at Everton. He comes in, he watches Fabian Delphin, Alex Iwobi for 10 minutes, and Gomez and various other players, and he goes, I'm fucking right off here. Yous are absolutely dreadful. He doesn't last 10 minutes at Everton Football Club, and that's why he won't be coming here. And Pochettino isn't coming here. Let's be honest. John says, cheers for the videos, Cam. Your content has helped me, and I'm sure all of us feel connected during lockdown and the tough parts of the season up to front office. Thank you very much, mate. Really do appreciate that. Look, yeah, for this one, I think we're going to leave it there then. If you will get in the comments in a second before we finish up, but there you go. They're a list of names that have been linked with the Everton job over the last 24, 48 hours or so. Skip through a couple of them at the end of the stream there, but again, I just don't think there's much in a couple of them as well. We will be talking specifically about Nuno Espírito Santo just in a stream of his own next week. We'll be talking about Duncan Ferguson in a video of his own as well, and maybe David Moyes and a couple of other managers that seem really at the top of the list to potentially take over at Everton, not the likes of Steven Gerrard, who's never going to happen. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It really, really does mean a massive amount to me. Massive thanks to everybody for getting involved again. The support has been unbelievable. Big thanks to everyone for getting involved in the live comments. I really, really do appreciate it. Massive thanks to everybody for watching as a YouTube video. If you're watching on YouTube, leave your thoughts in the comments and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. Big thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, bright and early, so join us again. We're going to be talking more about the managerial stuff as well. And yeah, if you could join us, that would mean a great deal to me. Remy says, good to see. We have done nothing. Live of it says, Ferguson will no doubt be a great manager, but at the moment it's too early for him. On the other hand, perhaps Ferguson with a mentor may be a good idea. Can't think of who, e.g. Dalglish or Paisley. Neither of them two, please. I get what you mean. Dalglish and Paisley, obviously neither of them two. I get what you mean, yeah. Lavit says 85-86. Yeah, Dalglish and Paisley 85-86. Yeah, fair enough. Fair point. Jedi says, thanks, Cam, with the toffees. Who knows what'll happen? All the speculation. Exactly. And look, we're here to just talk about all the speculation. As and when the breaking news breaks, we'll be here live on the channel doing live streams. We'll be here on Twitter covering everything. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It's the best time to subscribe. If you want to keep up to date with all the latest Everton news and information, we'll be here as and when it breaks. Mama says Everton are too small for managers like Poch or Conte. We're too small for Ancelotti. Then again, maybe we were because he fucked off. Charles says, has anybody mentioned Ralph Hasenhüttl really like his Southampton side playing team like a coach who gets out a lot of players? I don't rate Ralph Hasenhüttl whatsoever. I don't think he's a good manager at all. But that's just my opinion, and that's and you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, of course. Ryan says, Conte, lol. We're a bit even in that. We're not even in that league. Let's start being real. Again, that's why I said he's never coming to Everton. Wayne says, like Ancelotti claiming he had a successful season, finishing 10th. Yeah, it's a bit mad. And Sidan says, I think Eddie Howe is the best for you. Eddie Howe isn't the best for us. Duncan Ferguson's a better option than Eddie Howe, in my opinion. Ryan says, 2 months ago I would have said Big Dunk, but after Carlo's exit I've accepted that we just need someone who loves the club. I wouldn't have said Big Dunk. There you go. Manuel says maybe they'll wrap up Nuno as early as today. Well, if it does happen, we'll be here breaking with the latest news. And Big Nos says, forget all the bookies prices, they're only interested in taking your money. Yeah, I wouldn't pay any attention to anything that the bookies say, or the bookies prices, or the odds on favourite, because again, that those prices fluctuate through speculation. I could put out a tweet now going, I've heard from a reliable source that Nuno will sign for Everton today, and his bookies price will drop massively. Now, I don't know anything. I don't know anything that nobody else knows. I don't know any reliable sources, and Nuno probably won't sign for Everton today, so don't pay too much attention to the bookies prices in regards to that. But there you go, look. That's it for this live stream. Massive thanks to everybody for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. Massive thanks to everybody in the live comments. Try to get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. It does only take a second. We'll be back tomorrow with another live stream, as I said, joined by Tom, T-Logic, to discuss more managerial options. And then we'll be back all the way through next week, talking much more about the situation and also various other things as well. I want to talk about some player performances, Ben Godfrey, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, etc., because I get that a lot of the content is going to be regarding the managers at the moment. Of course it will. Liam says, I wasn't serious about Hodgson yesterday, by the way, mate, up the toffee. Thank you very much for the £5 donation, Liam. I know, mate, I know. Top lad. Thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate that. And Alex says, we just need to let Brands do his thing. Yeah, I'll end on what I said at the start of this team. Marcel Brands is the director of football at Everton. Let Marcel Brands direct the football. Let him bring in the players. Let him choose the manager. Let him make the footballing decisions. Nobody else. There you go. Big thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Really, we do appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see you soon on The Mighty Blues.